Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at IHateCritics.com, Everyone's a Critic Podcast.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The handle is CriticsPod. On Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, YouTube, all your podcatchers. Subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. We'll read your reviews on the air if we get any. And be sure on YouTube to click the little bell to get notifications when a new episode drops. Patreon.com/criticspod is the best way to help support the podcast. And we also have our TeePublic merch at IHateCritics.com. This week, we're going to start the episode just like this movie started its movie, Mope.
Wait, we're not. I'm not doing that.
No. We're not. We're just gonna. This movie's the equivalent of doing that. Is what I'm getting. What I mean.
Oh, this movie starts off with one of the more surprising, shocking opening scenes I think I've ever seen in a movie. A group of misshapen men are all gathered together in this room, and they're being told what to do, and the instructions they're getting are just kind of you're kind of taken aback, and then you think, well, this is not going to go that far, and no, it goes that far into something in the world of pornography that is certainly somebody's fetish, not mine by any stretch. Really horrifying stuff. Definitely starts off on a kind of a horror movie vibe, if you ask me, even though nobody dies and everything is entirely consensual.
Yeah.
I assume it's just really, really desperately off-putting. Our lead characters are introduced in this scene, and one of them is attempting to perform and is not able to, so the other one has to help him by whispering in his ear.
Words of encouragement.
Which is yeah, it's so creepy though. It's just the whole thing. Wow. That's how we're introduced to our lead characters, who are two guys who are really desperate to get into the porno business for reasons. One of them has given up a relatively lucrative job in IT to pursue pornography. The other one is deeply mentally unbalanced, and together they form this bond out of desperation, loneliness, and seemingly no one else willing to talk to them. The one who had the difficulty to perform, he's really just messed up in the head. He's played by a guy named Nathan Stewart-Jarrett, who is certainly an interesting actor. He plays this role with an incredible intensity. He has this issue where he refuses to shower or just clean himself in general, I guess, and everybody talks about it throughout the movie, and he does nothing about it. They end up getting a job at this very low-rent porno production house run by Brian Husky, where their first job is getting kicked in the balls repeatedly, which I guess is kind of a metaphor for life for these two. And from there, it does not go anywhere where you think it's going to go. It's an impressively surprising movie. Not necessarily in the direction. The story, definitely. But in the terms of the direction, this director, Lucas Haney, is pretty much tipping his hand at every turn as to what's coming next, with the growing unhinged performance of Nathan Stewart-Jarrett, which is kind of starts to, at a certain point, to overwhelm everything of the movie because he's just growing more and more unhinged to the point where once you reach the ending, it's almost pretty much inevitable at that point what's about to happen. And I don't find the way that this movie is structured to be as interesting as his performance. He's interesting. He's got my attention, but the movie is seemingly giving away everything that is about to happen throughout. And that was kind of off-putting to me. But the whole thing is just remarkably unpleasant. And I know obviously this is a true crime story as well, so that's an aspect of this you need to know, is that this is based off of a true story. I understand that this has a predetermined ending that is not a good one, but this movie is there's nothing here to grasp onto, which maybe might be kind of refreshing in a way. Like this movie is not interested in trying to please anybody. I appreciate that aspect of it, but it's just so unbearably grim that I found myself just unable to endure it at times, and I wanted to turn it off multiple times, which I would compare it to like Night of the Virgin, which is a movie I absolutely love. But that movie had at least a level of absurdity to it that kind of leavened the grossness and the horror of it. It was so just blatantly absurd that you could grasp onto the dark humor of it. I didn't find anything to grab onto here, and it just left me with this just unpleasantness overall that I just can't recommend.
Yeah, it's odd making a dark comedy off a true story that is very dark and grim, and they're trying to make a dark comedy out of that, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's just an odd choice. You're right, though. It does come back to that lead performance. He's what makes this a watchable movie, and I mean, it's a really great study in mental illness based on his performance, not the direction, like you said.
Yeah.
And that's intriguing. That made the movie fly by. But then everything else, like you were saying, the fact that it's a dark comedy and it's a true story and it ends horrifically, it doesn't work. And then if you're going to make it work, as gross as that first scene is, or I guess gross isn't the right word. It's gross to me and you probably, but not to some people. After that, though, a lot of it's off screen. Like when they get kicked in the balls, it definitely doesn't have that much balls, the movie itself. That doesn't really go for it. Stuff happens, but they kind of turn the camera and you just kind of see the reactions. And so if you're trying to get that, that shocking vibe where you're wanting to be, I don't want to say sallow or something like that, but something, that disgusting and, daring you to watch this movie, it doesn't go for that either. So really, it just comes down to that performance, and that's all this movie is.
That is a great point, because I think you have a director here who does have sort of the pretension towards being someone like Pasolini and Salo, or like who's the guy who did Climax?
Gaspar Noé.
Yeah. Who at the very least, I don't care for Gaspar Noé, but at the very least, he is going to force you to look at the thing that he's doing, and I think that this is more of a childish approach to what they do. This is the childish tee-hee, look what we're doing, tee-hee, that kind of childish approach to shocking material. It doesn't have the nerve or the guts to actually to take it to the logical end of what that is like showing exactly the horrors that are on display. There's a scene late in the movie where the lead character, Nathan Stewart-Jarrett, he's hired this prostitute to pretend to be his girlfriend, and he's trying to use her to start his own porn company, and he puts her in this situation where they're going to use her as an actress, and they're going to make him watch them use her as an actress because they want to get revenge on him for being such an asshole. And this scene is supposed to be shocking and confrontational, and it kind of is, but it also kind of isn't.
Right.
And it doesn't have the nerve to really make that as disturbing as it is. It definitely wants that. It definitely reaches for that, and it comes up well short of it, because I just don't think this movie has that kind of nerve.
Yeah, I mean, that scene, and again, you don't have to be the graphic Gaspar Noé type thing. You could be the Toby Hooper and do it all in the eyes, but he doesn't hit either one of those at all, because that scene would be more of like that Texas Chainsaw scene at the end where you're just looking at everybody's face up close and the reaction. And because of the poor direction and just, I mean, other than the lead actor, the acting was just mediocre at best.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I mean, because the situation is shocking, it does affect you, and it's really more, it comes back to the way that actor reacts, but it doesn't have that, we sit there and talk about Texas Chainsaw like it's the 10 best movies, one of the best 10 movies ever. And this, we're going to forget about by the end of it might take a while because of the bukkake scene at the beginning. But eventually I'm going to forget about this movie.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't. A movie like this should be more of a gut punch, and it just falls short on so many levels. But at the same time, I do want to praise that actor, because I really did latch onto him, and it was heartbreaking watching his performance. That's the only thing I really got out of this, though. I
think you made a great point about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, though, and that the implied horror, or at least the skillfully directed horror that puts you in the position of seeing it for yourself. Like, you don't need to see the chainsaw enter somebody's chest. You know, you don't need to see it. But if you can put that image in the viewer's head skillfully as a director, as Tobe Hooper does amazingly throughout that movie, he makes your in the position of feeling everything and seeing it in your mind without actually seeing it on screen. That is the trick of an amazing director. And Lucas Haney is just not an amazing director. Like I said, he's tipping his hand throughout. He's giving away everything that's coming next in the movie. And he just doesn't have the skill to pull off the kinds of things the kind of ideas that he seems to want to pull off.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the movie. It's available, like $5 if you want to watch it. But again, I'm if you're gonna watch it, I really, it's worth seeing that guy's performance. I hope he goes on to do bigger and better things, because he was phenomenal in this. And I mean, that says a lot, because this ended up being a very watchable movie.
He's the only thing that draws a laugh too. I mean, just that whole thing where he's with a woman, he's finishing it, and he just yells "driven." It's terrifying and hilarious at the same time, because it's such a ridiculous character trait.
Well, yeah, the chicken hands and the monster hands.
That did get me too. Yeah.
I mean, he really is the best part. At one point, David Arquette has a cameo, and he does something funny there too. Not Arquette, but the lead actor. But it's just, I don't know. Everything else is just, it's very amateurish. Everything else except for that lead performance. But I hope he gets more out of this, because I mean, I could see him, doing anything. He could be in, a Christopher Nolan movie, a David Fincher movie, a Spike Lee movie. He's that good where I could see him leading something impressive and possibly even being a star. I hope.
Yes, remember the name Nathan Stewart-Jarrett.
Yes, because clearly I haven't, because I kept calling him the lead actor the whole time. Short history of the long road.
Yes, the short history of the long road. This is stars Sabrina Carpenter, and directed by Annie Simon Kennedy. And is the story of a 16-year-old girl who is left alone on the road. She's been raised out on the road in this camper van combination with her father, who very early on in the movie dies. His name is Clint. He's played by Stephen Ogg, and she is left alone to try and fend for herself in the world. And she decides to go to New Mexico to try and find her mother. And it's not an easy trip. This van is not necessarily as reliable as it could be. It was built in 1984, so it's got some issues to it. She's also got very little money, and she's got to rely on a lot of kindness of strangers that gets kind of scary at a few moments, for sure. But also there's some inspiring stuff in there as well. This movie is one of those movies that's not necessarily about a story, but it's about a feel. It's about creating an atmosphere and kind of lingering for a very long periods of time. Just kind of not really telling you much of a story, not setting up obstacles that she has to overcome, or something typical like that. This was a movie that's just about feel. It's about atmosphere. It's about emotion, and I was really moved by this film. I found Sabrina Carpenter to be incredibly compelling. Just an actress who I couldn't take my eyes off of. She's intelligent. She's unusual. But also somebody like I desperately was worried about, like a dad. I felt like I wanted to just make sure that she was going to be okay. And I like that aspect of it as well, because she's got this innocence, but also this, hard-won sort of experience of having been on the road her entire life, and having this whole complicated situation with her dad being this very unusual guy, and her mom having obviously being unusual in her own way, which leads to some scenes late in the movie that are really awkward and unusual and uncomfortable, but also they're filled with attention and excitement in a way that you really don't know what's going to happen. and it's certainly not typical of what you would assume is going to happen in this moment. And I really love every aspect of this movie.
Yeah, I'm not wired to love movies like this. I like this one quite a bit, but I mean, it'll never be a movie I can, I just these, slice of time movies where it's just, lacking the story, like you say, you just kind of follow the person for this duration of time, and but it's still very, very good. You mentioned a good point about, kind of being the father to her, is the way you feel watching her go through these situations, and the strangers doing the things they do to help her keep moving forward. You want to do the entire time for her. It's, you want to be that Danny Trejo character later on in the movie. When she meets her mom, like the way you described it is perfect. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. It's heartbreaking. It's just weird. And then, you gotta, she's never met this woman really. And it's really, I don't know. It's good. It's good filmmaking, good acting. It's just one of those movies where it's like I don't need to see them, but I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I didn't really recognize too many people in it. Like if it's Zach Braff leading the way, I'm like, fuck this, I don't give a shit, because he makes these movies a lot. But because I don't know who she is, it does make it that much better, and so I can appreciate her performance because she's in every second of this movie except for maybe some coverage. It's and I like the way it ends. It's somewhat, it's not totally feel good, but it's, she's where she wants to be, and who knows, the next 3 days of her life could be miserable. That's the way her life is set up. It could be great. It could, you don't know what's going to happen because she's so vulnerable, and she's going to continue to be when this movie's over. But it's definitely it's worth watching, especially if you're into these type of movies. Like I could see Josh loving something like this. Maybe he tends to like these movies, so definitely good for what it's going for, and I don't know, really great performances.
The performances are amazing, and I enjoy the direction of it. Just the way that she allows the scenes to linger on, and the way she creates an atmosphere. I really loved, and also how revealing it is of you as an audience member. There's a scene with this character played by Rusty Schwimmer, Marcy, and she's just this nice Christian lady who's just trying to help this girl out. But there's something weird about it, and I don't know if it's just my the training of all of us just to be suspicious of anybody who's too nice. But I was worried that something bad was going to happen during that scene, and it didn't. But it's weird just how it kind of, it's not necessarily anything that's happening on screen. It's just it's reflecting you in the audience and what you think of people. You just assume that something bad's happened. Meanwhile, then they introduce Danny Trejo, and he's the nicest guy in the world, and it's fucking Danny Trejo. What? That's a beautiful sort of juxtaposition that she pulls there, but I also like the aspect of parents in this movie are interesting, because you've got a father who treats his daughter like his wife, and you've got a mother who treats her daughter like a stranger because she is, but still the way that Maggie Siff plays this character Cheryl is so interesting, and it reflects people that I know who have children who have no feeling or connection to them and don't know how to react to them in many ways. And some of those people have had their kids their entire lives. Right. but the way that Sabrina Carpenter plays those things, like she tries to, she steps up a lot of time to be her father's support system early in the movie, and then when she meets her mom, she kind of becomes a child, and that she brings out a childish aspect in her that really we hadn't seen up until that point in the movie. And I find the way that parents can do that to kids as a fascinating aspect of this.
Yeah, definitely. And then you throw in the fact that, this is its own unique story on top of that. She's lived with her dad, and she was treated a certain way. And so that's how parents treat kids, and parents want kids around. And then when that dynamic changes, it's so powerful and so, like you said, uncomfortable and hard to watch that it works. I don't know. And I mean, and going back to that vulnerability, it just, I can't imagine, your own kids, daughters especially, going through the world like that. It's terrifying. It really is. And even when, like you said, a nice Christian lady, you just never know with people. And I don't know. It's definitely worth watching. It 2 is available if you want to see it. Again, I think movies like this work better in theaters where you have less distractions. But any movie that does lingering, the more you can let that lingering, play a role, because it usually does when it's done well, and that it works better in theaters when the lingering matters. When you're at home, I guess you get your phone, you get kids, you got pets, you got just shit happening. Sometimes you miss the point of the link. You miss the effect the lingering has.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Five Bloods.
The Five Bloods is Spike Lee's newest movie. It's on Netflix, and it stars Delroy Lindo, among many others, as 4 Vietnam veterans head back to Vietnam for the first time since the Vietnam War. They are ostensibly going back to retrieve the remains of their friend Norman, who died in Vietnam and was their leader of their unit that they called the Five Bloods. And that's the ostensible idea, maybe, that they're going back for that. But there's also another aspect in that when Norman was killed, they found about multiple millions of dollars in U.S. gold that was being paid to, I think, South Vietnam at the time. And they want to recover that and take it home and essentially create their own lives with it. The tension, of course, is these the PTSD that these guys all feel going back to this place that was so insanely traumatic for everyone. But also there's the aspect of race in modern times and greed and homage throughout. Like Spike Lee uses tropes of Platoon, as well as the treasure of the Sierra Madre, to reveal these characters. All the while, these characters are reflecting aspects of life in the world, how black men are treated in America today, fighting wars for a country that doesn't welcome them back, is kind of a wonderful metaphor for modern times. And Spike just continues to evolve as this filmmaker who can weave the past into the present seemingly better than anybody. I just love that aspect. Then you have Delroy Lindo delivering this performance in this movie that is so intense and scary and riveting, to the point where at the end of the movie, where he's seemingly lost everything and he's just kind of slipping into madness, he monologues to the camera, and it is like Shakespeare in Vietnam. Like, it is amazing, and you cannot stop looking at him, and his eyes are boring through the screen at you, and it's insane to watch. Just an amazing performance. But then you have Chadwick Boseman as well, who plays Norman in the flashback parts of the movie in Vietnam, who is this very reserved but also commanding presence. Like, he's so insanely charismatic that he pulls you around, and you can imagine a group of guys like this just, what do you want me to do? I'll do anything you tell me. Like, that is just the kind of compelling power that Chadwick Boseman brings to this relatively small role. And there's a mystery as well as to his death that gets kind of revealed. That's fascinating. Another aspect, another layer of the drama that is part of this movie. Another aspect of that is that Danny Trejo's son has decided to show up on this trip out of nowhere, worried that his dad is kind of losing more and more of reality. Jonathan Majors plays him, David, and he brings another modern aspect to the movie as well. Just all of it worked for me. Every inch of this movie, even at 2.5 hours, this worked for me. Yeah,
Delroy Lindo, performance of his career, far away. I mean, performance of a lot of careers, really. You're right. That monologue at the end, it brings me back to some of Spike Lee's early movies too, where it's more played for comedy in his movies, or not even comedy, but just for an effect. But the way they talk to the camera a lot of times, which we're going to get to in the classic, a very cool style that he used to use a lot in his movies. It wasn't that, but it reminded me of that, because it was different than any. I've never really seen a movie do it like this, and it kind of, a little bit like that, but it was its own thing, and it was just, I don't know, just powerful is the only word I can really think of. It was amazing. It was great. This was a hell of a movie, and it's something I wish everybody would just go watch, because it's, you get on social media and you see people arguing over this stuff, and they're doing it in headlines, they're doing it in, everything's black and white, or, it's hard and fast. There's no I don't know. There's no gray area, and this movie has all the gray areas in there, and it helps you truly understand any situation and every person. Everybody's different, and no one wants to look in the mirror, and this movie does a good job of maybe not making you look in the mirror, but helping you understand that everybody is different, and you can't sit here and say one thing and just, I don't know. It really does. It just is a powerful movie. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying it the way I want to say it, but if you, I don't know, it's just worth watching, because it could really help. Could really help open your eyes up a little bit, because it's a powerful piece of filmmaking. And you got, all these guys are different. They all have different agendas. There is some intense scenes. The landmine scene. Holy shit.
Yeah. You could just tell what was going to happen. As the one of the characters is just kind of ranting about something, and he starts walking backwards, and they've already established that landmines are a part of this story, because they've got this group that is kind of a group of side characters who are in Vietnam removing landmines, and so that kind of seeds it in your head. And then when the scene begins, and this guy, one of the characters, is just kind of monologuing hard, and he's just kind of ranting about something, and he's walking backwards angrily, you're just like, oh shit, I know exactly what's going to happen here.
Yeah. And then right after that, another character steps on, but he doesn't let go of it, and the way they get him off of it is, it's the intensity that creates, which I imagine in the theater again would have been even more intense, but it reminds me of that American Sniper trailer, which I hate. Clint Eastwood and Spike Lee hate each other, but the intensity you have watching Bradley Cooper's character, just being in that scenario, it's very similar here. You got a father and a son, with the son on the landmine, the father reacting, and then I don't know. It's just the whole thing was just I couldn't get my eyes off the screen. It was so intriguing. The whole thing, Spike Lee is a phenomenal director, and, two of his best movies ever made were the last two, and he's made some great movies. So I can't recommend seeing this one enough. I think a lot of people should see it, because it's really, really good.
Absolutely. It's exciting too. And I love the opening scene. I love the use of archival footage to set to putting you in the place of the mindset of these guys, going to Vietnam to fight a war that they don't really want to fight. They're doing it, thinking maybe that they're fighting for a country that might welcome them back for their sacrifice, and that's obviously not something that ever happened. And then you have all these famous people who were killed, these famous African Americans who died, speaking out against the war, and it adds all this other elements to it. But then you have the Marvin Gaye soundtrack was amazing. Gaye's voice at times, man, the power.
Yeah, definitely. And I love the way it looked when you went to the flashback scenes, because it made you feel like you're watching archival footage.
Yeah,
which was really neat. Good. The way he changed the lens or whatever it was, the sheen, whatever as Josh calls it, just had a different feel. And I don't know, can't recommend this movie enough. And Delroy Lindo, just give him all the awards this year. I don't give a shit. I don't care about awards, but he can have them. I don't think that's going to be topped.
No, I don't think so.
Anything else on Defy Bloods?
It's incredible. Watch it on Netflix now.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized, undisputed classic.
She's Gotta Have It.
She's Gotta Have It, 1986, Spike Lee's first feature-length film, stars Tracy Camilla Johns as Nola Darling. Nola is a woman who's dating 3 different men and sleeping with each of them, and has really no compunction about that, whereas the guys are very much ill at ease with this. We've got Jamie, played by Tommy Redford Hicks. You've got Greer Childs, played by John Canada Terrell. And you've got Mars Blackman, played by Spike Lee himself. Of course, Mars goes on to be a television pitchman alongside Michael Jordan, which is a weird origin story, considering that this is a movie that's basically just about sex. But this is just a reckoning about a woman who, how men see a woman who is sexually free, a woman who doesn't necessarily have the traditional values of one woman, one man. She's not interested in that. She's interested in just exploring who she is and doing what she wants to do. And men in so many aspects of life are allowed that. And when it's a woman, we're conditioned to be judgmental about that. And this is a movie that's extraordinarily confrontational about that aspect, and almost unintentionally in a way, which is I want to get into, because there are times when I don't know if necessarily Spike Lee knows that's the movie that he's making. At times, because he puts himself in the movie, at times it seems like he's allowing this character, this Nola Darling character, to be pushed around by these guys. She still does what she wants to do, and she still holds on to what she wants, but you'll see her at times kind of bending to what these guys want of her. And I'm kind of fascinated by, almost like he doesn't even realize entirely that he's making a movie that is about this woman realizing her sexual freedom.
Yeah, I can see that. Whether it's unintentional or not, I mean, she definitely is a human. So, I mean, there's a big plot point where she does something against her will, or not against her will, but something that she doesn't, she calls it a misstep. And humans do that. And so whether he was doing that on purpose or not, it doesn't really matter. It captures it and kind of makes it more interesting. I was shocked at how much I liked this movie. I think I'd take this over like Annie Hall or Manhattan. I mean, it kind of reminds me of it's just the way that he puts his own style on it is such a fascinating thing. It makes it more watchable. And it was just interesting, the performance. The whole style that he has, especially early in his career, because Do the Right Thing's kind of like this too, stylistically. It's so wholly his own, but it still works and makes it just easy to get through and intriguing. I don't know. I don't know.
And sexy as hell. I mean, this is a sexy movie. Like, this movie, the opening scenes of this movie, the first sex scenes in this movie, that is some seriously, like, erotic, like sensual stuff. And I was really impressed about, if you're going to make a movie about sex, it damn well should be sexy. And that's exactly what he did here, is he's really given a very serious look at her sexuality. And unflinching, and I really appreciated that. There's no pulling punches here. I'm like we were talking about with Mope. After the first scene, the punches are pulled entirely. Here, you're right in there, and you're going to see this, and you're going to experience it as she's experiencing it. And I really appreciated that approach. There's a very artistic use of black and white throughout the movie that really adds to the eroticism in many ways. It's very cool. And Ernest Dickerson shot this and shot it brilliantly, working with Spike, as he did so many times early in his career. Really fascinating movie with so many unique dynamics to it. I love the character of Mars. It's a funny character. He's also this Spike allows himself to be essentially like this very childlike character in many ways that Nola is just almost kind of patting on the head to be with. She's almost as if she at times has sex with him just to shut him up. I like that aspect of that in many ways. I just think that's kind of funny. And then the childlike aspect of him not willing to take off his Jordans during sex, like he's like a teenager. They commented on it later, like when she passes on time with Jamie so she can go help him find an apartment, and he's like, well, isn't he a grown man? Can't he do it himself? It's like they're commenting on it there and making what you're thinking of him plain. He is very a childlike character. Then you've got the Greer character, who's a genuine abuser. Like, he is an emotionally abusive character, not physically, but an emotionally abusive character. I kept waiting for him to get a comeuppance, but it's never that simple. It really isn't, because we don't know what the entire history of their relationship is. He may not have been abusive their entire relationship. What we see of him, he's a complete asshole. At one point, he says to her, if you get fat, I'm going to dump you. Or when it comes to her sexuality, he wants her to go see a doctor because of what he perceives as nymphomania, because she wants to have sex when she wants to have sex, and she goes and does it. She realizes right away that she didn't need to, but still she goes and does it. And I find all those aspects fascinating, and like I said, they kind of add up into a way, like where Spike is making this movie intentionally and unintentionally at the same time.
Yeah, and then you go back to the sexiness of it. The way he shoots those scenes is so artistic and so just the frame, the use of light, the fast forward, everything that he does. Just it's like it could be a painting. It's really impressive, which adds that much more to it. And then you throw the dialogue in there. All the characters you mentioned, the way they behave, how they're so different. Just makes for fascinating dynamics. The Thanksgiving scene, I don't know. It really is. It's a short movie, 90 minutes, or a typical movie, I guess, lengthwise, 90 minutes or so. It's available on Netflix.
And the thing about it is, with the Thanksgiving scene, she invites all three of these guys to come to Thanksgiving, and she wants them, and she makes sure that they all know about each other. This is no wacky noises off shit where she's tossing one guy out the door to try and get the other guy in. Nothing like that. She is very straightforward. She does not lie about who she is and what she's doing. And meanwhile, all three of these guys are trying to impose themselves on her and impose what they want of her onto her, and she refuses. And that is so real. That is so real. Like, I know I've tried to do this in the past, where I impose what I want out of somebody onto them, and they reject that, as they should, because
right.
You shouldn't let anybody tell you who you are. And each of these three guys, their worst trait is trying to tell her who she is, based off of what they feel about her. And that's really a fantastic theme that too few movies have ever tackled.
And especially 1986,
Yeah.
Even if it was unintentional, he gets there, and this movie's way ahead of its time in terms of theme. I don't know. It was a good movie to watch this weekend, I guess, is all, especially in 2020. I don't know. This is a great movie, and you need to go see it.
And we need to explore more Spike Lee.
Definitely. What we don't need to explore is too much more of 1990. Betsy's Wedding.
Oh, man. Betsy's Wedding came out in 1990, 30 years ago this weekend, with directed by and starring Alan Alda as a guy whose daughter, played by Molly Ringwald, is getting married, and he's this asshole. He's got to be competitive about how much money is spent on the wedding, and just all this, this. I don't understand this character. He's exhausting. Like, the amount of things that he gets himself into just in the first several minutes of the movie, just inflicting upon himself these plans that he's got to spend all this money that he doesn't have on. And I just found it all just exhausting and never funny. It never gets funny. I think I finally just gave up after about 45 minutes because I was just tired. I mean, Joe Pesci's in this movie, and he plays just a guy who knows Italian mobsters, because that's, what he does in movies, I guess. Which I found just to be a waste of a good Joe Pesci. The biggest waste in the movie, though, it's got to be, oh gosh, I forgot her name. The lady who's on Schitt's Creek now. She was on SCTV.
Catherine O'Hare.
Yeah, barely in the movie. She's got the best plot. She's barely in the movie. She's got this wonderful plot where she's ripping off her husband behind his back and taking his money when he doesn't know what's happening. And I loved that. I wanted to see more of her. She was really engaging, and she's barely in the movie. Molly Ringwald is just boring. I've never seen a more boring Molly Ringwald performance in her career. And the rest of the cast, like, these are all a lot of recognizable people, and none of them are very interesting. This movie is exhausting, and like I said, after about 45 minutes, I just gave up and watched The Disaster Artist instead.
Yeah, I started it as well and didn't finish it. Am I wrong in that basically Alan Alda's direction was essentially his character? I mean, the name of the movie is Betsy's Wedding, and it's all about him. You know, he's exhausting. Everything about it's exhausting. It's all him. I don't know, just very overindulgent, but only on him. So it doesn't make any sense to me.
And he's not even the most interesting character in the movie, you know?
Well, right. That's I mean, he's almost the least interesting, or he could be. But he's kind of the lead. He's the director. He wrote it. And I don't know. It just, I mean, it was 1990, so maybe he was in a different headspace. But I don't know. I was just kind of, for a guy that's kind of universally loved, this is something that kind of makes him look kind of full of himself. I don't know. But it wasn't good. So.
It's got these like fantasy sequences in it where he wakes up from dreams and he's almost murdering his wife. Like, did he think that was funny? Did you think that was a good joke to have in the movie? And it has no payoff. Like, as far as I can tell from the minutes that I watched it, they're not setting up any payoff. At a certain point, those flashes of his dream sequences just disappear. So why were they even there? They weren't funny.
Yeah. I don't know, but go ahead and skip this one. It is free, I think. Was it on Netflix or I don't know? It was on something, and I didn't have to pay for it. So.
HBO Max or HBO something or other.
All right, RoboCop 2.
RoboCop 2. I can say this about RoboCop 2. It's not directed by Verhoeven, so it's actually not terrible in terms of how it's made. Irvin Kershner directed this, and he's a good director. And so you've imposed a good director on what is not a story that needs to be told. And especially when you look at it from the perspective of today, 30 years later, and where we stand with our relationship with the police. This is a movie that is all about glorifying police violence. It is just the real thing about RoboCop has always been is about glorifying, shoot first and ask questions later. And let's make the police as bulletproof as possible in enacting violence on people and creating these scenarios where that violence is okay, and we're supposed to sit back and just revel in how great this violence is and how great it is to see a police officer who's untouchable by anybody. That's just to when you put that in perspective of today, which is not fair to the movie, but I don't care. It was never good. It was never good to create a notion of the police that is entirely above the law and bulletproof, and venerate that via this character. And that just makes it that much shittier. On top of the shitty first movie that they made, which was just violence porn, this one at least tones down the pornography of the violence to more of an acceptable action movie level. But it's still this shitty veneration of untouchable, unbeatable police officers who are, above the law.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to think that this came out in 1990. It looks shitty. It's clearly a B-movie level action movie, making a ton of money in the theaters. I don't know. I don't know how we accepted this at the time. And in a lot of ways, you can blame movies like this for, why certain people want to be police officers because of that above the law, untouchable. Not all of them, obviously, but there's definitely a segment, and it's, okay, who cares if it's not fair to this movie? It's part of the problem, as far as I'm concerned. Unfortunately, so was Die Hard and Lethal Weapon, and I like those movies, but, that's created a little bit of a monster that we have, and it sucks. And it's weird that RoboCop 2 brought this conversation out, and not the Five Bloods, but
here we are.
But it was watching it was like super awkward. I'll be honest. I started watching it this morning. I was like, I can't finish this. This is it was not timely at all.
No, definitely not. This is shoot first and never ask any questions.
Yeah. next week, all I know for sure is that we got Days of Thunder.
That's pretty much it. That's the show.
Probably make the classic Talladega Nights. I'm just kidding. I would not do that to Sean. So we'll see what's coming out streaming. It's just so hard because whenever you look for new streaming, it blends in all the old movies that are coming out at the same time, and nothing's standing out to me yet, but I'm sure something will pop up. So we will let you know throughout the week. We don't have a classic yet. We'll figure that one out too. But otherwise,
feel free to suggest movies on the Facebook page if you want to. Just go to the Everyone's a Critic Facebook page and throw that out there, like, watch this movie. Maybe, I don't know.
Although, what's been thrown out there in the past is The Greasy Strangler and Gremlins 2. So be careful what you ask for. The Prophecy, Flickchart, I'm assuming, okay? Good to go?
Sure, yes.
Prophecy 1995, Paycheck.
Paycheck. Which one is Paycheck?
Mel Gibson revenge movie. Narrow it down.
I don't even remember The Prophecy, so I don't.
Let's flip a coin.
Yeah.
And The Prophecy.
Sure.
Wins. Doctor Strange, Singing in the Rain.
Singing in the Rain, although I do love Doctor Strange.
All right. Swiss Army Man 7.
Ooh, another good one, but it's 7.
Yeah. About Schmidt, Thor Ragnarok.
Wow, these are tough today. Man, I really love Thor, I really do. But About Schmidt is just, yeah, I think it's that one. Yeah, just the performance of Jack Nicholson is so great.
Yeah, I can't take Thor as a standalone movie, and I still don't think it fits. I mean, it's starting to, but I'll go with you. Nightcrawler, Miss March. I don't know what Miss March is.
Yeah, I don't remember Miss March.
Nightcrawler.
I may have seen it,
let's go Nightcrawler or FX.
Nightcrawler.
Agreed. The Terminal, Highlander. Hard for a different reason.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually going to take Highlander. That's how much I hate The Terminal.
I'm with you. Captain America, The First Avenger, A Fistful of Dollars.
Captain America for me.
I'm going to go A Fistful of Dollars, as much as Clint Eastwood's starting to get on my nerves as he gets older. Because I think that's the one I like the most, other than Unforgiven, of his westerns. And oh, cool, I won one. Evolution, Jeepers Creepers.
Evolution.
Sure. Sleepers, Little Miss Sunshine.
Little Miss Sunshine.
Yeah. Blade Trinity, The Great Escape.
The Great Escape. Blade Trinity is really bad.
Mm-hmm. For a few dollars more, or Jarhead?
Jarhead.
I'll flip again. I like the trilogy.
I like it. I just didn't love it.
And heads wins, so a few dollars more wins. Clear and Present Danger, Across the Universe.
Clear and Present Danger.
I hate those movies. You can win one. Clear and Present Danger wins the coin flip. Talk to Her, Who's Minding the Mint? And I don't know either one of those movies.
I know Talk to Her, but not Who's Minding the Mint.
All right, Talk to Her or Walk the Line?
Let's Talk to Her.
Outbreak, The Spy Who Loved Me.
Outbreak.
Agreed. Big Daddy, Mystic River. That's a tough one.
Mystic River.
What
is with the Clint Eastwood thing today?
I have no idea. We didn't even, because I said, because we were talking about Spike Lee.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that one movie, American Sniper.
Oh my God, Flickchart is racist.
Well, I mentioned American Sniper.
Right, but we spent all that time talking about Spike. His movies aren't popping up. What's up with that, Flickchart?
These are very white movies. Hereditary, Finding Neverland.
Hereditary.
Clouds of Sils Maria, I Heart Huckabees.
I've not seen Clouds of Sils Maria. I should, because I've heard good things with Kristen Stewart. But
all right. Planet Terror, I Heart Huckabees.
I Heart Huckabees.
Agreed. Still more whiteness. Tombstone, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
Tombstone.
Yep. Near Dark, Forrest Gump.
Oh, Near Dark, all the way.
Man on the Moon, Wonder Woman.
That's tough. I love Man on the Moon. I love Wonder Woman. They're very different movies, obviously.
Yeah, they're hard to compare.
Yeah. They're both really good at what they're doing. Man on the Moon.
Yeah. Pulp Fiction, Star Wars.
This isn't as hard as it seems, as much as I love
not
Star
hard
Wars.
at all.
Pulp Fiction is. Yeah.
That's why I laughed, because I knew Star Wars was going to lose. Ocean's 13, Disturbia.
Disturbia is not bad. Ocean's 13 is kind of bloated and overlong and complex and complicated, overcomplicated. I'll go Disturbia.
Yeah, I was good after 11. 12 was, they're fun, I guess, but you just watch the first one over and over again, you'll get the same effect. Patch Adams, Zombieland.
Zombieland. I might even pick Zombieland 2 over Patch Adams. It'd be hard, though.
Munich, AI.
Munich.
Agreed. From Hell, Beverly Hills Cop.
From Hell. I know I love that movie way more than most people.
Yeah, it'd be just being nice if I went with you, but you win the head coin flip anyway. Hulk 2003, The Fortune Cookie 1966.
I don't remember The Fortune Cookie yet. I'm not sure if I've seen it or not.
All right, we'll go the Hulk 2003, Syriana.
Syriana.
Agreed.
Or more because of the more because of the failings of the Hulk than the greatness of Syriana.
Right. The Goonies from Hell.
From Hell.
The Goonies from Hell. I'll let you have that. The Karate Kid 3, Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Source Code, Twilight, New Moon.
Source Code.
National Lampoon's European Vacation, Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon.
Agreed. Heat, Lion King. You're not
no
a big
passion
Lion
for
King
either
fan.
movie.
Yeah, and oddly enough, I kind of have passion for both. I think I'm going to go Heat.
Why don't you make the call?
I'm going to go Heat. As much as I like Lion King, and it's probably a better movie, I could watch that massively overrated action movie over and over again. I don't know why, but I just love it. I Know What You Did Last Summer, Cube.
Cube.
Mean Girls, The Holiday.
Which one's The Holiday?
Jack Black.
Is that Jude Law?
Jude Law.
Okay.
Cameron Diaz.
I don't mind. I know Josh hates that movie. I absolutely don't mind it at all. But what's the other movie?
Mean Girls.
Mean Girls. Yeah, of course. I love Mean Girls. Yeah, that one. Absolutely.
Agreed. Informant, 2012. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 1990.
Ooh, a few months ago, this might not be that hard because The Informant's a really good movie, but now I really love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I gotta go with the Turtles. I know it's probably recency bias, but I really enjoyed that.
That's fun. Here's an interesting one. Spartacus, Lethal Weapon 2. I mean, Spartacus is better, but I'm going to watch Lethal Weapon 2. I don't know. It's
Flip it.
Yeah. Spartacus. I hate the All right, last one, because this is a tough one. RoboCop dances with wolves.
God damn it.